The Canadian Federation of University Women Guelph chapter is celebrating its 50th anniversary as an organization in Guelph. One lovely day, some of our members gathered informally on a wonderful lawn to reminisce about the club's origins and its impact on the community. We joined them in the midst of their conversation.
One story about the fun we had the first Christmas party when we were meeting in the elegant surroundings.
Tell us, Doris.
Yes, I'm glad you're going to let me because I was going to anyway. But the community center, or community house at the university in those days, where the president entertained visiting dignitaries. And we sat on Chesterfields and had a very posh place to meet. And we had a Christmas party, and our leader, Florence Partridge, arranged amusement and everything. But a lady, a professor from Mac Hall, stole the show. Her name was Jessie Lampton, I think you reminded me. And she brought to that party in 1945, when we had had wartime conditions for a long time. You couldn't get potatoes, you know, sugar and tea and coffee were rationed. And one thing you could not get was Miracle Whip salad dressing. And when the table was laid out with all the goodies, after we'd played the games and we were going to have our tea and goodies, she stood there and said, "Look, ladies," and held up a large jar of Miracle Whip. And all the university women became little girls and rushed over, and we all had a little bit on our, where we're having salads or sandwiches. That was an exciting moment, and the University Women's Club brought that to us folks that were hungry for a Miracle Whip. So it's not all, you know.
That's the seeds for all the interest in nutrition. Every other meeting I go to, we have a nutritionist speaking to it.
Yes, that's true.
And it all started with that jar of Miracle Whip.
I'm the only one here that would admit that was a highlight of the early days. Mark was there and ate the Miracle Whip, but you won't admit it.
Florence, you and I were founding members of University Women's Club in Guelph, and you were the first president. What do you remember from those early days?
Well, I was president under false pretenses, Mark. The club started with a telephone call. The networking system was working then, even as it is now. And Mabel Dunham, the author, was also the librarian in charge of the library in Kitchener.
And she wrote a book about the Grand River.
That's right.
That's right, that's the one.
So she telephoned to me in the library at the Ontario Agricultural College and said, did I think that we were ready for a University Women's Club in Guelph? I wasn't very enthusiastic about it myself. In fact, I was very unenthusiastic.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
But I didn't feel that I could speak for everyone, for all other university graduates in Guelph. So I agreed to make a few phone calls and to see if there was any interest. And I found that indeed there was. And the people I phoned telephoned to other people. And we arranged to call a meeting. And I suppose it was the provincial or Dominion organization which sent Dr. Vibert Douglas. You know her, Georgie.
Yes, she was Dean of Women at Queen's.
That's right. And she came and addressed a group in Massey Hall. That's a building on the college campus at that time. And she was so enthusiastic about the place that University Women's Clubs had and could have that the group who were there decided, yes, they wanted to have a club and arranged to have an organization meeting in about a month's time. So that was really how it got off the ground.
Yes, I remember that there was a gathering of, I think, about 30 people, and we had help from Kitchener, the Kitchener Club in the very beginning. They sent over a member of their executive to recommend the kind of club they were running and to tell us some of the programs that their members had found interesting.
I've always felt that the best way to keep from getting onto an executive was to be on the nominating committee. So I accepted a position on the nominating committee. And we agreed to hold our first meeting in October, I think, of the fall. And by then, the nominating committee was to bring in a slate of officers. We did a lot of telephoning, and not many people were interested in being on the executive. But we did finally get an executive of a president, secretary, a treasurer. I don't know why we weren't smart enough to think we might need a vice president, but apparently we didn't. So we were all set then to relax for the summer and look forward to our first meeting in October. But things didn't go as well as we had expected. The person who was to have been our president became ill and was hospitalized just shortly before our first meeting. So I agreed to take the chair for the first meeting, and before I knew what was happening, I was elected president. So that was how greatness was thrust upon me.
Yes.
I would like to mention as particular interest maybe to Marg McKinnon that one of our early speakers was Evan McDonald, a local painter, artist, and his talk was about the fact that Guelph needed an art gallery, a museum, and a place to provide for musical efforts. So that was in 45. We've got the art gallery, we've got the museum, and hopefully the Civic Center will be along.
That's true.
That's when I first heard about it.
Evan McDonald, of course, was an absolutely remarkable man whom you would know, Florence.
Yes.
And I've always had this enormous admiration for you, because at a time when most people weren't thinking in terms of pictorial art, Canada in 1944, at least Southern Ontario, wasn't really a hotbed of avant-garde art.
Well,
You were persuading people at that OAC to buy art as alumni gifts to the college.
yes, but we must consider that that was wartime,
Yes,
and people had other uses for their money, and
Yes,
they had
I
other
bet.
things on their mind, very definitely.
sure, which makes you all the more miraculous.
There you are, Florence.
Well, miraculous is a marvelous word.
Well, Florence, both my husband and I, who graduated in 42, saw our first oil paintings in the Massey Hall lecture hall, the round room and the lower level of Massey Hall Library, and we thought they were lovely. In our homes, we had colored photographs or, prints that had been framed, and we, two deprived people, had never seen oil paintings till you had them sent from the art gallery in Toronto, and they loaned them to the university, and we could look at them and then vote on them.
Doris, you're giving me credit where it doesn't belong. It was the English department who made those arrangements.
And who was behind it, Florence? Now we can say it was Florence.
Don't you think that University Women's Club members act to foment that kind of interest in a community?
Yes, I think they have through the
Yes.